Okay, we are live. So welcome everybody to the security working group meeting. Um, Basically, here we have three items in our agenda. The first one is the automatic check for dependencies and vulnerabilities in the Node.js CI. Facundo is not able to join for some weird reason, but basically he's working on that, and I think that the PR is it's done. We just need to define what are the next steps. However, since Facundo is not able to speak, I think we can just um, skip this one and wait for feedback in the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me try to promote Facundo again, maybe. Facundo, you there? Okay, I can see you trying to speak, but yeah. No sound.
No sound, but at least was green, so yeah. Almost.
So, okay, let's move on.
Okay, now?
Yes, finally.
Yes. Oh, thank God. I'm terribly sorry. I had to download the Zoom client. I was trying to join from the browser.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So yeah, do you want to provide any information? I mean, I think that the PR for the tool to check dependencies is ready to go, but what about the next steps? I mean, it will run every X time, or it will create issues. What is the idea?
Yeah, so my idea for that one was after we merge it, integrate it to CI, I was thinking it would be easier to do it on GitHub instead of Jenkins, because when you do it on GitHub, you already have access to, you can get pretty easily a token with which to query the GitHub database for the vulnerabilities. And you can also create very easily issues on the repo. So that would be my preference. But yeah, the next steps would be indeed, once it's merged, to automate it, I would say run once per day. And if it detects a new vulnerability, it creates an issue on the repo. And yeah, then the next day it would actually read from the existing issues to see if the vulnerability has already been reported, in which case it won't do anything. But yeah, that would be the basic idea.
Okay, that's fine. I think that a suggestion for that, I mean, usually in the Node.js, we have several automations. We have automation to detect flaky tests, for instance. And this automation, I mean, when it detects a flaky test, it creates an issue. But nobody really looks to that after a while.
Yeah.
So I think that one thing that you can add to your issue is you can open the issue inside security working group repository, or you just add the label security working group agenda, and then even if nobody looks to that, we will discuss about it in the meeting.
Yeah, okay. I need to check how, like, if it's actually possible to open issues on a different repo from where the script is running, because I would guess you need some kind of token if it is possible, right?
I think that even in the main repository, you can add the security working group.
Okay, perfect. Cool. Yeah, my suggestion was going to be like, if we had an agenda to put a recurring item there saying check if there are any new issues reported with that tag. But yeah, definitely I will add it to the tag of the issue.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, next step, integrate to CI. I mean, I think that Michael was talking about integrate to the night build, which is in the Jenkins. I don't think that in the CI it will. I think that it can work. Yeah, no problem. Integrated to the CI, and whenever a vulnerability is found, an issue is created to the repository with the security working group agenda. That's the next step, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's move on then. Next one, threat model. The biggest one, actually. Let me open the document here as well. Docs, go. Here. Okay. Going directly to our discussions to the agenda, we have the discussion about are potential mitigations and mitigations different. This is a question that remains from the last working group, and I think that we need to skip that in this one as well, because the main concerns were from Michael and Bradley, and they are not here. So, okay. The next one is, this is a live document. When should we publish it? I mean, I assume that threat model is not, it's a live document. We always need to improve that. So we need to define at least a goal to publish it inside Node.js repository. And how do we know exactly what is the, I mean, when the document is constant enough to be published to be live? An idea?
So I would say like the priority would be to address the most common vulnerabilities, the most common threats, I mean, before publishing, right? Because right now it's in a state where I think only a couple of threats are mentioned. Yes. So we could maybe set a goal. Okay, let's have at least the 5 most common threats already like well described with the mitigations, and I can also like send it to some colleagues to do a final review to see if it's ready to be published. But yeah, we just need to decide an arbitrary number of, let's say, the most common threats that we want to have.
Do you agree, Ulysses?
But I think it's a good plan. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think we still have some big letters to do, you know. So I think once we finalize to define those, I think maybe, yeah, it's a good option to start sharing with the additional colleagues, you know, to have a full external overview and see what happened if, you know, anybody came with a new idea or something that preventing us from publishing, which I think is going to be like the big next thing. And then maybe potentially we can have, you know, a deadline, say like we are going to publish on the first to the last day or X moment on the following month, days, week, whatever. And then basically if nothing prevent us from publishing because it's wrong or something like that major, we can go with you know, publishing, and then as it's a live document, we can still iterate it over the time and just using some Semver or whatever, you know, just to have a clear versioning so people knows when something changes or whatever. Maybe we can even use RSS support or things like that, you know, so people knows when we change the model or yeah, I know, depends on where we want to publish, which is I think is a different topic, but yeah, aside of the data and the content, yeah, I think that's going to be one option.
Great. So it goes to the third item in the agenda, that is list threads to be added to this document. I think that, so we have defined that to be live, we need to address at least, let's say, 5 common threads. So let's try to address them. We have the threat list. Actually, we have threat list to be clarified in this document. And we have the HTTP DDoS that was concluded. We have the HTTP request smuggling. And okay, in case you have any other threat idea, let's try to like put it here.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm currently working on the HTTP smuggling thread because I saw that was by far the most common one on the HackerOne reports.
Yes.
So that makes a lot of sense to have it. And yeah, if you have some time then afterwards to read the HTTP DOS section, I added that. I wrote that based on what I could read from already closed reports and the node.js documentation as to when it's actually an issue of node, of the HTTP server of node itself, and when it's actually like an application issue. But I'm not really sure if I've got the boundaries right. So if you guys could take a look, that would be awesome.
Sure. Can you paste the link here in the chat?
Oh, give me a second.
I need to add to the minutes as well for those who's not able to join. By the way, I will give Ulysses permission to this document to edit. Ulysses, let me get your email here, editor. Okay, you now have access.
Fantastic.
So this is the link to the section.
Okay. Opening it here. Okay, it's in the document. Sure. Sorry, I didn't not see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Denial of service of HTTP server. Okay, let me read it. Yes, this Loris was addressed recently, I guess, in Node.js. Yeah. Okay, that's amazing. Just one thing to add here. Actually, in the one of our first meetings, we have defined that the mitigations will be. We have another section called threat mitigations, where we will put a lot of mitigations. And here here we need to just point the document to the threat mitigation so we can like reuse. Just an idea. I mean, you can just move it to the threat mitigation and link in case, well, like if we found we find another threat that can be used at the same mitigation, we just link.
Okay, so yeah, I was looking at that I left a comment because I think that makes a lot of sense, but only for those mitigations that are, as you said, shared between threads. So a mitigation that can be used in more than one thread, and mitigations that require like a long explanation, right?
Yes.
For the ones that are pretty short and maybe self-explanatory, I would still add them if they are singular to one thread. I would add them in the thread itself, as to not like crowd the mitigation section.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. Okay, so in our list, we have actually prototype pollution attacks was addressed by Ulysses as well. So I'm closing it from the threat list.
Yeah, that's good.
Go ahead.
I have some comments. I would love to have feedback openly. I think it's clear more or less. I mean, prototype pollution is the typical thing that has been around for since the very beginning. So I didn't find a lot of prototype pollution attack actually in Node.js itself. It's very common to find it in third-party libraries, of course, Lodash, the typical, but in general lines was very hard. I see some super tricky edge case reported this year actually about the uses of console table with some secondary argument that actually can prototype. So I think illustrated, I think that's, enter the option of Node itself can be, as well potentially, under this kind of prototype pollution, but it's the only case where I find it aside of very common on libraries. So I was not very sure on, considering it or not vulnerability in Node itself, or just something, potentially by third parties. But that was my big concern.
Actually, the idea here is just to list the threat, and if Node.js is vulnerable or not, it really doesn't matter. Because, for instance, the first item is uncontrolled search path. This is a vulnerability, but Node.js is, this is designed by Node, so it's not considered a vulnerability. We just need to document that, okay? And just one thing is that the prototype pollution attacks can also be added, or at least to what does Node.js trust and not trust. In the Node.js source code, we have a lot of internal functions to avoid prototype pollution. So that's the reason that you don't find it in the Node.js source code. So we can add to the list that Node.js Node.js does not trust any user input or something like that on the client input, for instance, because every piece of code that you send to Node.js itself, to the internal node, it's validated and it's like against prototype pollution. So if someone find a way to do that, it's certainly a vulnerability. So if we say that Node.js does not trust, so that's fine. Okay. And also, that's just one thing in your prototype pollution attack. Honestly, I don't think that using map instead object is like a solution, a mitigation. It might be a solution, but certainly it's not the thing that we want in Node.js, like to spread in Node.js. For instance, in case everyone will not use object anymore, just map,
Yeah, I think was a little bit edgy. Yeah, I actually have to say that I was following the guidelines from Oliver Artaud, which has a very nice, like a catalog of mitigations and things like that, like 30-page, really good document about this. So it was one of his suggestions. I was like, map over object sounds fancy, but in the old days we didn't have maps, so it was like maybe not the best option. But I think some of the mitigations as well are a little bit tricky, like this create object with null reference, like, but little bit tricky, So I think they have a lot of side effects, many of those solutions, but
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Amazing. Unsanitized inputs is considered denial of service attack, or like, can we, like, I was thinking to, instead of be like totally be more generic. I think that unsanitized inputs can fit in the thing that Facundo did for HTTP DDoS, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, Facundo?
I don't know. So here, the threat would be unsanitized inputs, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Denial of service is when anything that causes the application or the service to not respond or to not be available as it should.
Okay.
Here it's more like it depends on what you use the unsanitized input for, right? If someone uses it to maybe create or delete data that they shouldn't, I wouldn't say it's a denial of service, it's more tampering.
Yes.
But I would say it it depends on what you use it for.
Yeah, I think that it can also mix in the, we were talking about adding that Node.js does not trust in user input. And also unsanitized input can be merged into there. Can be mentioned in that part as well, I guess.
So you would say that Node does not trust unsanitized input.
Actually, Node does not trust in any input, actually.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
That's fine. The other threats we can deal along the journey. The item 4 in your in the list is the VM module discussion. Honestly, I have heard a lot that VM module is not a security mechanism, even providing a V8 context. But I mean, I think that we can discuss a bit more about it, and we will need Michael basically to do that because honestly, I'm not from. I don't have enough knowledge to discuss the VM module. I never worked in this part of Node.js, so I would wait for other folks.
I was curious about that because I mean I'm also completely unfamiliar with it, but from the documentation, it did sound like it would offer some protections for very specific cases. So, for example, something I was just wondering while hearing about the prototype pollution attacks is if you inject properties into the JavaScript language itself. If you do that on a separate JavaScript context, is that protected from other contexts, or is not? Or context is only the global variables?
Yeah, that's the tricky question. I don't actually. We can say that, for instance, for 16, node 16, it protects, but we can't guarantee that it will protect in the node 18 because it's like the V8 does not provide. I mean, as far as I know, V8 does not neither document or comment that this is a security mechanism. So they are not willing to keep it as a security mechanism. So it makes us like we cannot trust on that because they never say that this is a security mechanism. And in case in a next Node.js release it falls in something, we cannot say anything.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I see a lot of potential in the tutorial for explaining PM and included some good examples of this kind of context global and all of that, because I think a lot of people are super curious, myself too, about how we can, extend a little bit the use of VM and see how that react in terms of security. But
yeah, absolutely. We have another discussion going on is like there's one that the node parser verify headers that are passed to it.
Yeah, so I left a comment there because I was looking at the documentation of the HTTP server, and in one section it mentions that the server, when it receives a request, it parses that request into a header and a body. So it separates, and then it specifically says it does not parse the contents of the header or the body, which to me sounds incorrect, because I would say that it needs at least to parse some of the headers to see the content length and when the request actually ends. But yeah, I was wondering if I'm misunderstanding the documentation or if it's something wrong there.
Okay. Yeah, I can check it. I mean,
yeah. So let me send you the. I'll paste a link to the docs. Let me find the window.
Yeah, sure. I will try to look at it.
So it says the HTTP API is very low level. It deals with stream handling and message parsing only. It parses a message into headers and body, but it does not parse the actual headers or the body. So yeah, that to me sounded a bit weird. And
yeah, actually, yes, that's weird, totally weird.
I think the body part is correct.
Yeah, the body part is not like, I mean, it's not addressable because of performance concerns. But the headers, I think that it can part. I think that when the documentation say that it does not parse the actual headers and the body, it means like it does not validate the headers. It's just like this is the header, this is the body, and you do what you want. But
Yeah, could
still
be. But
unclear.
the thing is, in order to decide where the body begins, it needs to actually read the headers, because the headers have the length of the body.
Yeah, absolutely. I will try to find it out.
Yeah, that
okay.
was the question.
Great. That's a great question. There's one about we were discussing about the Node.js trust the file system configured by the user. So we were talking about that the /tmp folder in Unix system is a shared path, a shared folder. So I didn't see your question. Let's see. Since this is something unavoidable, it can be a feature of the application building file from running. Okay. Okay. Prefer implementations where the behavior does not depend on the file system contents that are writable by other users. Actually, let me see one thing here. It matters, but it can, if we say that, we are saying that, okay, if you are not using an implementation based in a shared path, you are safe, but that's not the case. For instance, if you try to load an npm module and it's not found in your that's not found in your Node modules, it will use the Node.js module resolution to find out the Node.js module. So it will go upper, and one of those folders might be a shared path, even if your application is not directly in the shared path.
Okay. Yeah.
You know?
So yeah, it's kind of an implicit way where your application accesses the share paths.
Yes, exactly. So can I close it?
Let me quickly see. So, wait. So yeah, so the comment was more of the wording more about the wording of the item, because when you say ensure share paths have no interference, that's kind of you cannot do that. It's like what you said, right? Share paths will have interference.
Yeah.
Only just because of how the module resolution system works. So I think at least I would phrase it differently, as in minimize how much of an impact those paths have in the behavior of the application, even considering or especially considering things like the module resolution.
Yeah, totally. I think that, I mean, the ensured share path have no interference is basically make sure that your npm modules is there to not let Node.js find this in another path, you know. Like it's just make sure that you not be interfered by shared paths or something like that. I mean, I think that is not clear.
Yeah, but if that's the case, then I would phrase it like what you just said. Let's make it specific about that threat, because otherwise it's too generic, and it might be hard for people to convert it to actionable advice. Advice, because you cannot really take into account all the shared paths of a system.
Okay. Yeah, but in the first sentence is like the assumption is that the current working file system is safe for the Node.js module resolution. So attacks such as uncontrolled search path element are not considered a vulnerability in Node.js. So I think that this needed to be rephrased. I'm not sure how, but it needs to be more clear.
Yeah, I think to make it more specific, it's a great idea. But yeah, so here you're saying that the assumption is the current working file is safe. So this item, according to what you say, is exclusive of the uncontrolled search path element, right?
Not exactly, because we have experienced on a few security vulnerabilities. That is, for instance, we have fixed it in the next Node.js version. But for instance, if you when you load your Node.js application, it contains several dependencies, and one of them is the OpenSSL. OpenSSL tries to load the providers.dll. And this is usually found in the OpenSSL folder. But in case you provide this same file in your application, it will load this. But this only for Windows, like just several things. But I just want this statement is just to make sure, okay, you are in this folder, you need to make sure that this folder is safe. When I say safe, is basically you will not have interference of a second actor, a second person. If you install a bad package, it's your fault. But you will not, you shouldn't actually, your folder shouldn't be able to let other users in your system to install packages or do anything. Your folder should be restricted to you. That's the idea, actually, but I don't know how to write it,
But I think that that's covered by the second item, right? The ensure the working directory is restricted to the running user. Or do you mean more than the current directory? You mean?
Okay, yes. Yeah, as I said, this section is very similar to Node.js trust the file system configured by the user. So
yes, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We can mix both.
I'm fine with leaving the first one as it is. I would add like a couple of sub items then with examples, right? Like pointing to the module resolution problem or the OpenSSL problem. Like saying, okay, if you don't like things or ways that the share paths could interfere with the Node.js applications include these two, for example. And then you mentioned the OpenSSL and the module resolution.
No, that's great. That's good. Can you add to the document, like as a recommendation or something, just to remember?
Oh yeah, for sure. Was it the certificates file that was replaced for OpenSSL?
Yeah, I actually a couple of openness. Yeah, the OpenSSL is weird. It's not weird because I mean we have fixed it, but it's still able to do it if the user let it. So yeah, I wouldn't mention it. But yeah, we need to add a couple of examples. Oh, absolutely.
Let me think.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Node.js REST, okay, that's fine. Let me see if we have something. I think that we have covered almost everything. Any further suggestions to the next meeting, like to the agenda to be discussed? Like we have the VM modules and we have the potential mitigations and the mitigations discussion. Probably need.
Oh yeah, and I would add the discussion, the question we had about the parsing of the HTTP
Okay.
headers.
Yeah.
Okay. Question.
Yeah. Another thing, maybe, I think we started the document with the idea of talking about environments like local and then containerized application and CLIs, whatever. So like more options. So I think is, do we want to keep that so we have a specific threads per environment, or is something that we maybe can?
Yeah, I was
I don't
also
know.
wondering about that, because do we have any examples of threads that, for example, are not valid for the, let's say, the local system environment where we were working on, but they are valid for the containerized application?
Yeah, actually, the denial of services, denial of HTTP servers is not related to local system, I guess, but we can keep it there. Right? Because I mean, in a local environment, you are not.
Yeah, indeed, true. It is a more common when you have it as a public-facing service.
Oh, actually, I think that local system is not development system. It's like any VPN production environment. For instance, DigitalOcean machine can be a local system, I guess.
That's a good point. Yeah, so it could indeed be an application running just outside of a container. Doesn't need to be.
Yeah, if I expose my application here, I'm vulnerable, and that's fine. Yeah.
But yeah, then that begs the question, right? Do we have any vulnerability, any threats that are exclusive to applications running inside containers?
That's a good question. That's the reason that I let the environment two just to, when we finish the environment one, then we start to think about the environment two, because this is tricky. I honestly don't think that we have different threats, but we need to take a look with calm or more deep here at least.
Yeah, I mean the only thing I can think of right now is some weird interaction between the application and the container in which it runs, maybe running out of memory, but it maybe we could add it as a discussion for the next meeting. If it's still valid to separate between environments.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's tricky because also if you move to containers, you will have like all the inherit threads that you have for the containers itself, like if you are running with sudo or these kind of things, like root level. If you, or you connect the worm volumes, so you basically mess up and you have the worm permissions too. So I know it's tricky. We have tons of things but yeah, I think it's the same as, for example, with local environment, like actually if you don't put a firewall or you mess up the configuration of your file system and, so it's it's not part of Node, it's like more like a context. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was thinking that potentially, other environments might have, less potential vulnerabilities. I think the most open one is like just, having an Ubuntu machine or whatever and run Node like freely, rather than, maybe in a Docker container, you have less problems because, you control the environment a little bit more. But yeah, I don't see nothing specific. And the same goes for if we go to other environments like desktop or, CLI applications. Actually, it's tricky. I know, like if there is anything specific, those CLI applications that are not part of prototype solutions or things like that.
Yeah, once we have just the same binary for everything, I don't think that it really matters.
Yeah, I also I remember discussing this about having like command line applications having different threats than maybe a server. but I don't know if I would call those environments. It's just the type of the application.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can be, I mean, if we say that environment one is like local system that is like HTTP environment, and you are in a container that environment, but you expose it globally, it really don't matter because it works. It will behave the same.
Yeah.
What do you think about dividing them between, because to me it sounds like you have on one side remote threats, so things like you have a network service exposed and then someone tries to break your application from outside, and then you could say, okay, and then you have the local threats, which are actually, okay, your file system, your command line interface. Maybe that could be a way of splitting them, but I also don't know if it's completely necessary at this point.
Yeah, I would say the same.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have different threats, but it should be like one or two, not more.
Yeah.
I have added to the agenda to define the top 5 Node.js threats. So in case you are like, you look to this document and you want to help for some, in that definition, you can just add a few threads to the threats list. And then in the next security working group, we try to make a top 5 and just define, okay, we need to cover this first, and then we can go on.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good. Yeah. I think the rest of the things that we just say, maybe have some space on the tutorial or something like that. We can talk specifics then later on, and just open the discussion aside later on when we finish with this document. So yeah,
absolutely. So that's it. Just going to the last item of our agenda. There's really not too much to discuss because I didn't have enough time to work on that. Basically, this week and the last week was very busy to me. But basically, I'm working to add granularity to the MVP. And I'm doing a few live streams in Twitch just to expose it to the community. But yeah, it's working fine. The granularity is working fine currently. I just need to optimize it. It's currently doing a dump scanner, a dump match. For instance, if you pass the fs to the folder tmp, it will match string with string. But my idea is to improve it to use like a different algorithm, like a Haddix tree. Then it will be more fast. I hope, actually. But that's it. Let's see how it goes.
Yep.
Cool.
So, all good. We have finished our meeting. Just one thing, Facundo, can you please add your name to the minutes?
Oh,
yeah. So that's it. Thank you, everybody, for your time. See you in 2 weeks.
See you.